So welcome to another exploration into consciousness with the Atma Hub. And today, welcome all the pilgrims here and the ones that are still going to join us. Today, we're going to talk about topic is pilgrimage. And it's a very open topic, so we can talk about the why, the what, the how, the when. If anyone has done the pilgrimage, what does it mean? We all know life is the biggest pilgrimage. But then again, you know, what do we want to play with when we talk about pilgrimage? Let's start off with Sandrine.
Yeah, it was I came up with it because I was confronted to a few images of mountains, and also one of the cards I drew was the Holy Mountain in the Oracle deck, and I was like, okay, so where am I on my pilgrimage in this life, right? Am I ever going to do one, like in the traditional sense of a pilgrimage? Would I like to go 13 times around Mount Kailash? I don't know. I'm not feeling pulled to that, but I know of a few people who have done similar things. I also know people who have done the Jacob's Trail, the Jacob's Trail in Europe to Santiago de Compostela. And yeah, and I was actually fascinated by the idea of, and then I wanted to explore, you know, what would pilgrimage also be meaning in this more universal or galactic sense of like pilgrimage. Is it something that we want to reach something? Because when you engage with it, it means that it will change you, right? I mean, you kind of like, that is what you, I don't know, I might be wrong that some people do a pilgrimage just because they have to do it, like the one to Mecca, at least once in their lifetime. So yeah, I wanted to open up this discussion because I have never considered it in a sense.
So let's define it. Does anyone have a good definition, proper definition, or any, you know, just the normal definition that we can then out-create as we do, you know, out-create everything and apply it to a slightly different scenario. Does anyone have a definition?
Well, I can read the definition that is coming up from dictionary.com.
Yeah,
so it's a journey, especially a long one, made to some sacred place as an act of religious devotion.
Okay, well, we can out-create that right away because we can take because that's not necessarily what it is. So I'm not saying this is not what it is, like, you know, make a note of that. But, you know, if I think back, I did pretty much in 23, I did a pilgrimage. For the first time, I actually called it a pilgrimage. And that started in December 22 already. No, it started in February 22, I think, when I did a sequence of trips to various countries. And at the time, I didn't know that that was supposed to be a pilgrimage. What made it into a pilgrimage in the end was a sense of completion of something. Something got completed while I was doing that. And that was, you know, going where I met Sandrine in Turkey, and I went to Mexico before that, and I went to Samothraki, and, you know, and it had nothing to do with religion at all. I was searching, you know, exploring basically consciousness, like what we're doing here. And it only became after I had done this whole trip, all those trips, that I started saying, okay, well, that was actually a pilgrimage. And I can't still at this time, I couldn't particularly tell you what it did, other than it felt like something completed in my life.
Did this something similar starting last year. I knew I was being called to travel, but I didn't exactly know why until I got there. But the trip that I took to the UK last fall was really powerful. I ended up, you would call it by accident, it wasn't planned, but I ended up walking into other lifetimes of mine in seeing the span of that lifetime and integrating like that person that I was into who I am now. And so that was exceptionally potent. And I did some of that again when I went to Mexico this year. Now I'm going back to the UK and I'm going to Peru this year. And so I started to plan these trips around, in large part, seeing the world and finding joy and fun and having some balance against how much effort I put into work versus how much effort I put into play, but also that soul pilgrimage that's calling for me as well. Ireland is another place that I need to go to. There are specific places in Ireland that I know I have to step foot on again.
So I was thinking what we can do to give us a bit of a structure, because it'd be nice to work from that structure. I just put in there mechanics. Let's start with the mechanics of a pilgrimage, right? And then we see how it applies to what we've already done, what we still have to do or want to do or will do, and life in itself. And then, of course, life, we're talking not just in this realm, in all the different realms of existence. And the first mechanic that comes up here is the planning of it. So what do we know about planning? I'm just going to read what
I would back up for just a second
Okay.
and say that there's even a step before the planning,
All right.
which is the intention. Right, like when you're going on a pilgrimage, I think for me, the very first step is setting the intention. Right, like, okay, I intend to do this, right? And then the planning happens. So sorry to interrupt you, but
No. This is just what came up from that search. So absolutely. Now, if we can even expand on that. Is there something beyond intention?
I think it's the call to go.
Exactly. I want to pick up on that as well. I think there is something happening in the sense that unless you are within a faith, and I mean like the Southeast Asian in the background, there is a sort of where you either do it on an annual basis, you do it for a certain time in your life or an amount of time, or it's like in the more Islamic where you at least need to do it once in your life, in your physical life, to visit these places. And I also think that for other people it's more like the calling, even those that have nothing to do with religion. That person I was talking about who went to Santiago de Compostela, she's not religious at all. She was just like, I have to do that for whatever reason. And it turned out that she completely switched her life around like 2 times 360 degrees. So that's like, wow. And that always fascinated me in people that are coming back or going to these things, and what you also encounter on that journey.
I want to add to this call, yeah, or choice, or even intention, yeah. I think intention comes after the call. I think you laid
Oh
some
yeah,
right.
sure.
The call,
I think so
making
too.
the choice, because I've been thinking of doing Santiago for, I think, 2 years now. I've been thinking, I've read the book. Oh God, I'm so bad with that. I shouldn't even talk about things like that if I don't know. What's
Yeah, I can.
help me
There's
out.
one German. There's one German.
No, the actress. What's the actress who's got this? God, okay, forget.
oh, are you talking about Live, Love, Pray or something like that?
No.
Eat, Love, Pray?
Judy,
No, that was Bali.
Garland. Oh, not Judy Garland.
I love.
Don't worry about it. But she
Whatever.
went on it and she had, all sorts of experiences. I read her book, and of course I watched the Way movie that I posted in our, I watched that. But that was obviously recently, just thinking about the pilgrimage chat here today. But I want to add divine timing, all right, to this call, because the call is there. And every time I watch something accordingly, or having this chat today, it's like, okay, we got to do it, girls. Who's coming? We have to do it. And then it fades again. And then so many people say, oh, you're indecisive and you're making yourself, you can't get through to the planning phase and everything. And what if that is not the case? What if the call can actually come 50 years before you start truly planning it? So the call, look out, listen to the call, whatever pilgrimage, whatever choice. I've made the choice. Now the divine timing is because I'm obviously missing pieces. And that could be missing pieces, could be, I don't know, people who come with me, or, you know, some people go on their own, or the timing is just not right. It's not, everything's divine timing. So just add that. And then shall we have a look what they, so talk more about intention then.
Well, I just have something to say about the way and the
Yeah.
pilgrimage going through Spain and Portugal, Camino Santiago, right?
Yeah, it's the
So
in German it's called the
after you
Jacob's Way.
posted, after our call last week, and you posted that movie, and we were all talking about it, I had one of my regular clients come in on Thursday. I haven't seen him in a couple of years actually, but he said he was just going on and on and on about this pilgrimage that he did last year and how fabulous it was, and that was the Camino. So I thought, of course, what else would he be talking about?
So what did he, I mean, just why was it
So
so?
he's a hardcore bicycle rider and does all these kind of bike trips. So he biked part of it and walked part of it. So it's, you know, if you're walking it, it's a 35-day trek if you're doing the whole thing. I think he did 14 days because he biked part of it, or biked for 14 days and walked for, I don't know, certain amount of time. But he said it was just fabulous. And he'd do it again, but the next time he'd walk the whole way, because part of the process is being in the community, right, with these other pilgrims that are going with you, right? And he said you can book in advance, or you can just get there and they will, you know, there's accommodations, there's food, you know, food. I mean, this is just part of all of these little places along the way that, you know, are open to these pilgrims, whether they've planned in advance or not. You know, so I thought that was really, really interesting. And he said he went last April and yeah, it rained a lot. So, but then in the summer it's more busy and more hot. So getting the timing right for that, he said, was really important. But he said he just had a big poncho and it was fine.
In what also made me think about the pilgrimages, that I was wondering if somebody, well, I mean, we have a lot of people that are listening in that might be even living on a pilgrimage way, or living in a pilgrimage village. What does it mean, you know, for you maybe to be born there and then welcoming these, you know, everybody's from anywhere in the world, you know, knocking on your door, like when you have the Jacob's shell in front of your house, that means that you're an open house and everybody can come in. What do you have to be for as a person to do that, you know, to would you be willing to do that? Would it be interesting? Do you have to travel because actually, you know, the whole world comes to see you in a sense? These are all the things that fascinated me around this whole pilgrimage thing. I have to say I have not the call, as much as I love hiking and all that, but I have really not. It's like with India, I have no call going to India, and there is also no call for me to doing the Camino, but I'm being called to explore other things, like, you know, the old stones in Turkey. Or now I'm going to Peru as well in June. Maybe, Jen, you're on the same trip. I have no idea.
I haven't booked it yet, so I haven't fully planned it, but Machu Picchu is a focal point for Peru.
I will be there in June.
Amazing. And it's interesting, when I watched this movie, I think I felt very emotional watching it. Again, there was interesting thinking, why am I so emotional watching this? And what really was about the community. It was about all these people having their own issues, obviously, you know, and then as they start walking together, they get to know each other's package, you know, the little backpack in the back. And by being together, walking together, so many things get resolved, and the friendship that gets that bond. And I think that's really what got me, because of the community that I'm obviously interested in. You know, I love that kind of thing. And I also, it's interesting you mentioned that, Sandrine, because I did think of, you know, could I be one of those people with the shell on the door and let them in and feed them? And I wouldn't want to do that. I was very clear that I would not be one of those, because, you know, my hermitry camp said, no, that we're not doing this, but we're going. And then picking up people, and, you know, that I almost saw myself walking as a, I don't know, just picking up people, the resonance of the different frequencies and bringing people together. And, you know, and it really made me realize, you know, as I'm going through this redefinition or undefinition of who I'm actually have become now, it's like, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a healer, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a yoga teacher anymore, I'm all of that. But what I really am is a medium. I'm a catalyst and a medium for change, and I can do this wherever I be. And this is what I love so much about the pilgrimage, especially when you really chunk it down, where you just have your backpack. And you can't hide. You're not hiding behind anything else, because it's just you. You're presenting yourself. It's not the clothes, because you wear the same clothes as you walk that, you know. And it's just that. Everything that we've learned, everything that we've become represents itself in our design, in our personality. And all we do is walk. And there's something about the walking as well that has been very important to me from a pilgrimage perspective, because the distance is depending on you walking. There is this action, this responsibility, your focus. Like this one guy who's just like, whoosh, I'm walking, and everyone else was, you know, adamant to keep up with him, and, you know, and things like that. So there's a lot of joy in that for me.
So I don't think I would be somebody with a shell on the door either, but I'm sure that I would, my natural inclination is to feed people. So like I would hang things from my fence for people to eat along the way. But as you're talking, like one of my favorite places to go since I discovered it is Hot Springs, North Carolina, a tiny little town, but it's like a stop on the Appalachian Trail. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Appalachian Trail, but it runs from like Georgia all the way up to New York State, and it runs the ridge of the Appalachian Mountains. And it's probably not designated as like a spiritual pilgrimage, but it absolutely is. And you can feel that when you enter that little town. You can feel the energy of the journey that people have taken through there, and how that's opened them up in many ways, and the lessons that they've learned and the things that they've experienced. And you can feel where they've dropped off and picked up in that town. And I love to go there and be a part of it. In fact, like lots of the trails that I go on overlap the Appalachian Trail. So I've hiked sections of it, but I haven't tried to do like the whole 100 miles or something like that. But there's pilgrimage in our lives in places that have hidden itself until we see it as that. So that's what I picked up listening to you talk, was that I've been overlapping that pilgrimage for years without even realizing it.
And you know what, it's also made me, as I was thinking about this for this week's chat, made me realize that, you know, even when you go shopping, you know, just round the corner to your corner shop, everything is a pilgrimage, really, because you're saying hello to someone, be it now a dog or a person, or, you know, and for some reason the we talked about sensory perception, you know, the last couple of times, and it's gone so much beyond words. So by us just interacting with our auras, that's part of a pilgrimage. That's part of a walk. I did an auric walk today, and I didn't really think of doing an auric walk because I don't really, you know, I just came up with it as I was walking, because I walked up the road there to the park, which is literally 5 minutes, and down the road there's an old age home. And as I walked by, my aura, I just expanded out into that old age home. And I'm like, whoa, I've walked there so many times, and I've never really, you know, acknowledged how my aura immediately walked out, you know, expanded out into that entire building. And I thought, okay, interesting. Obviously, there's something I'm doing just by walking by that community that lives there. And I thought, well, let me see how this carries on. So I kept walking towards the path, and as soon as I went onto the road, and there were the cars and there were little houses and everything, and my aura just kept coming in automatically. And I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Almost like saying, no need to entangle with that. There's too much shit going on there, in there. No need. So, and then I go into the park, and on the right side, there's a thingy for horses. And again, my aura was like, whoa, open up into the horses. And I thought, how amazing is that? How many times have I walked there and haven't even thought about how the sensory perception changes? Because you think about stuff, you know, differently. You do, you know, when you walk, you have other things in your head. And it was the entire walk, and that's why I call it the auric walk. I just perceived how my auric field kept changing, and then I played with it. Well, who's walking next to me now? And all of a sudden, aura came in. All of a sudden, open up. And I thought, wow, this it felt like a kind of pilgrimage. And all I did was pick up my contact lenses on the other side of the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a really, really great point, Martina, is that in the modern sense of the word, right, as we're out creating that old definition, it doesn't have to be, you know, a 35-day walk to a sacred site, right? It can be just an intention, and then a reverent, you know, having a reverence and awareness, right? And then maybe there's an end goal, and maybe there's not, right? I think about this regular walk I do usually on Wednesday mornings, where that I went today with my dog, where there's these trees, these big trees that have these nuts, and she loves chasing these little nuts. So I throw a ball and then throw the nuts, right? But this is where that big tree came down last year. And so, you know, one day last year, I made a pilgrimage to this park. And I would just make the distinction that because I had an intention of, you know, laying crystals and saying prayers for the tree that went down, and for the space, right, to help energetically ground more light in the space and give more support to the trees that are still there, that were sad that their tree brother, you know, went away. You know, I would say that that was a pilgrimage. You know, and that's a 40-minute loop for me there and back. So, you know, just that, the simplicity of, you know, having some place in your life, right, that you, a local place that you want a pilgrimage to regularly. You know, I think that's, you know, totally valid way to think about pilgrimage as well, right? It doesn't have to be this, you know, long drawn out thing, but just an intention and a process.
wherever we go to, I mean, we're anchoring our energy with every step that we take. And I think that's why walking can be so important, because we're making that direct contact with the earth, and we're receiving and we're giving at the same time. We're receiving and sending at the same time. And so to me, now I'm not interested in a 35-day walk either. I like running water. I like to have a soft bed to sleep in, you know, like I want to enjoy things too. Like I'm not interested in the struggle anymore, but you can still go and have the experience without having to do the suffering and the sacrifice that is associated to some people with that as well, in my opinion.
The thing is, what I for me, it's the stripping down to this most simplistic my handyman. Most simplistic way of being, you know, just what you, and this is what I love about rebinging Poldark, because it's obviously in the 1800s in Cornwall, and you know the people are so poor and they're living, you know, off that mill. It's not a mill, sorry, it's a mine, and of course then they don't find any of the tin or whatever they're finding, you know, and then they just make it for another month, and then of course there's a shipwreck, and then they make it the stuff that comes off the ship, so they live on that kind of thing is just so attractive at the moment for me, that simplicity, you know, of it. And it's almost like so grounded that, and away from materialistic things, and yet it's totally material, it's totally human. Did you guys find that there is something totally human coming through? An appreciation of being human, of walking this earth? Is that the pilgrimage that brought up our topic today?
That was exactly the message that I got watching the eclipse in Kentucky last Monday. Was like, during totality, I kind of sat back, and I wasn't trying to do anything spiritual. I really just wanted to be there and observe it. But I kind of sat back, and everything got dark and it got cold, and you're watching this amazing thing as like the moon overlaps the sun. And I'm like, what am I even doing here? And the message was like, the most important thing that we're here to do is just to be human. That was as plainly as it was said, like, just be human. That's what we're here to do. All the other things we can be outside of the body. The only time we get to be human, though, is when we're in the body.
And this is exactly what I mean, I'm as a teenager and later on, I was in the Girl Scouts movement. So I did a lot of camping and, you know, hiking, being in nature and knowing how to survive as well. Let's put it like that. And that is also something that you know, if for people that love to do hiking, and they just pack their backpack, and you can be very sophisticated, even, you know, it's called glamping or glamp hiking, you know, I mean, you can have all the little gadgets and tools, but if you just go on the pilgrimage, I think that's a little bit different. You can still have the gadgets, but it's like, you really want to strip down to the bare essentials, right? You really want to find out that, can I survive on, you know, on one t-shirt, one t-shirt and one underwear, you know, pair of underwears or something like, you know, it's like, can I strip down to the bare minimum of existence, and then letting myself go and being welcomed in the pilgrimage community? Martina, do you remember the discussion that we had when we walked up to Cappadocia and we saw that guy sitting on the street there selling bracelets for whatever, and you said, I admire these people that he just can let go of everything. And I'm like, yeah, but he's also a phony in that sense. That was my reaction to it. But yeah, it's something like that. Like, okay, you just open up to everything around you in a complete different way than you would like when you're going on a travel, you know, or like, you know, it's not a travel, it's really something else. It's yeah, either the walking with your feet back, earthing and grounding, or community, you know, in communion. And then what is communion? It's humanity and also nature in a sense, right?
Yeah, it's always fascinated me to, I mean, I come from nothing, you know, I grew up very poorly, and I never had an issue with that. It was always fun. I always had some fun. Well, fun. It wasn't fun, but it wasn't the problem, you know, for us to live the way we lived. But I think what I'm realizing, that it's not about being less materialistic, or you're not having a shower, or not having this. It's not about that. What it's about is actually, for me, the realization, the more galactic we become because of our expanded perception, the more we appreciate being human. The simplicity of human, and before early on, we said there is a complexity of being human, right? It's such a complexity of being human, but there's also a simplicity of it, and all of it is. And I think, you know, for me, it's like the bigger the picture I have and I can comprehend, the easier for me it is to strip it all the way down. But that seems to be in my design. My cross is duality. So I need the bigger picture grounds me in that I can be completely present. Which is weird, because, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, I would have said, oh, come on, we don't need this, we don't need a car, we don't need this, but it's not about that. It's really not about that. It's much more about recognizing the totality of who we are by obviously doing the work, bringing the soul shot in. And once we do that, everything becomes so insignificant.
Like what we were talking about when we first got on the call together, was like, we go through these, peeling back the layers of the onion of awareness. And after we have like the bloomin' onion, right, everything laid out and fried with a nice batter, like, we realize we've just come right back to the beginning, and it doesn't even matter. Like, we really are bringing things down into its simplest form. The easiest to process it.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I've seen this with this group, because in the beginning I thought, okay, well, we're gonna have, I don't know how many people we need on this call, and how many, you know, people need to watch it, and then we need to start meeting, and we need to have a structure, and we need to start teaching, we need to have work. And you know what, now it's like, we don't need any of that. All we need is get together on a Wednesday and talk some whatever. And that's it. And that comes with such ease, and whatever else happens is totally irrelevant.
It doesn't matter what we talk about. What matters is that we get to sit in each other's frequency, and whoever watches it later gets to sit in our frequency, and that's all that matters. What we talk about, I think, in the long range is pretty irrelevant.
And and that's what I see when I watch the Santiago the Compostino, whatever it's called, you know, walk that pilgrimage, where you have no idea who you're going to meet. You have no idea who's going to come to your party. We used to have lots of parties here with many people, and I had no idea who was coming. Paul invited some, I invited some, Emma invited some. We had no idea. And then some people say, oh, well, you can't invite this one because this one is coming. I'm like, are you joking? Fight if you have to. Who cares? Just walk up and let's have fun, some fireworks. I would have welcomed it. It never happened, interestingly enough, because only the people who had to be here showed up. So, and that's what I see with the proper pilgrimage, the way we're seeing it. The people who need to be there, they will show up, the right people.
The photo behind me is from Niagara Falls. And a few years ago, I went on a pilgrimage. I would call it a pilgrimage to Niagara Falls, and never been there, really wanted to go, really didn't know why, right? Just knew that I had to go. So I ended up driving, of course, stopped along the way. It's a long drive. I mean, it's from ear to ear across the US. But as I was getting closer to Niagara Falls, when I was that day that I ended up driving there, there was, I don't know, like an interesting reverence that sort of came over me, right? And so I sort of started saying prayers and setting some intentions, even though I didn't know what was going to happen. I parked on the US side and then walked across the Rainbow Bridge, and I did a water blessing on the bridge, because you can walk when you're standing on the bridge, you can see all of the lines of falls, and there's, I think, 3 different falls that you'll see when you go to Niagara Falls. But as I was standing there, just grounding, did a water blessing, and then I was just grounding my source code light, and allowing my team to work through me to whatever needed to be done. All of a sudden, I had an awareness of this person standing behind me. And so after my little meditation that I did, I sort of looked, and there was a monk, a Buddhist monk, with like the red and saffron robes. And I just so then I kind of like went back into my own prayers. And within like 20 seconds, I turned around again and this guy was gone. And I just saw this image of one of the ascended masters, Lanto, who had joined me in my little, prayers and water blessing. And just got the message of just being here and being present, right? And so then I took a walk and went all the way to the end where like the big falls was. And then as I was going back, I took this picture, which the light was right for lots of rainbows. And it was just such an interesting journey for me. And even though, I drove there and then walked, it's like, for me, it's like walking with prayer, walking with reverence. It's that like moving meditation where you're in this state of like connectedness and openness and light, grounding your own light and just being present. I had interesting conversations with people along the way, took people's pictures. And, when I got to the end of the falls, then I did the other crystal blessing for the water, for the falls, and then walked back. And it was just like cleansing. I mean, the waterfalls energy is really cleansing anyway, right? You can think about standing under a shower and being cleansed, but just the energy of the waterfall creates all those negative ions that just totally scrub your energy field. And when I got back to my car, I was like, oh, I should just walk back. I mean, I didn't, I kept on moving, but yeah, it was just an interesting process. Right. And felt just really good and really healing and really clearing, for myself, for the land, and, working as like that pebble in the pond, that everyone I walked by got touched with some of that intentional energy, right? Whether they were aware of it or not.
I went to Raleigh, North Carolina last month to interview a new hire. And I decided that like everything was just going to be easy, right? Everything was going to be easy. So I did all my boarding passes on my phone. I have like the pre-checks. I don't have to go through like the long line at security. I parked my car, walked into the airport, like didn't wait behind anybody, walked right through the security gate, walked right up to the gate for my flight as it was like boarding. You know, flying even like Charlotte and connecting there, everything was so easy. And because I was emanating that easy frequency, everybody around me was happy and everybody was chatty with me, which like I'm a hermit too. So like, but I let it happen and just like allowing people to talk and they felt comfortable who they were and like they picked up on my easy. And so everything was easy for them. The guy at the hotel that checked me in, I made him so happy that he gave me like a free upgrade. I made the waiter happy. The lady next to me, like that sat at the table next to me at dinner, she ordered the same thing I did because like everything in my world looked so appealing to her. When you have that intention of connecting and easy and everything is supported and it just flows, like it percolates to everybody that's around you easily, very easy.
Easy breezy genius.
I just have to hold it all the time. You know, I haven't figured out how to hold it all the time, but when I do, like I love to see how it ripples out.
Tanya, you mentioned Ascended Master, and I think, you know, part of our journey, of our pilgrimage in this lifetime is to become Ascended Masters and to walk this earth as Ascended Masters. And you know what Jen just so beautifully, you know, illustrated is that this is the foundation. This is the foundation level to building this rainbow bridge that you also mentioned, Tanya. Because I've come to this realization the other day that only the reason why I'm here in the beginning was all about karmic resolution. And then it's like Dharma. What is my Dharma? What am I supposed to be doing here? And I've realized, you know, the other day, it's like, yeah, it's building that rainbow bridge to celestial body, celestial mediumship, because this is why we've come here for. And I'm so excited because, and not that I didn't know it before, but it's just come together so nicely. We've come here to clear our karma so that we can start working on this celestial body, the diamond body, the rainbow body, the whatever resurrection body, whatever that is. This is the next level of exploration for us, really, big picture.
I was
having
that conversation with somebody the other day. And I didn't say it like an ego term, but like I get told in certain contexts, not by others, but like from communication with them, that like I am an ascended master and I don't attach to it and I don't make it feel big, but like I can see that as something that's coming. But since time is not linear, we are all the things that we are now. It's just that we haven't pulled that into now. So we are the ascended masters now. We're just not emanating the frequency of that yet because we haven't identified it yet. Or maybe we haven't done all the karmic resolution yet to hold that frequency.
There is so much, you know, I think I said walk to peace for pilgrimage, walk to peace. There is such freedom in me knowing. And whilst we've been talking about celestial mediumship, you know, until the cows come home, we've talked about this a lot and the new biology and everything. But for some reason, there is this, it's almost like the choice. No, it's beyond choice. It's that knowingness, that inner vision, that inner cognition that doesn't even desire. There's no desire to, you know, be able to, okay, now I am manifesting apple in my hand, that kind of thing. It's not about that. It's about, you know, probably working towards a death process that is more conscious, you know, that in itself, I mean, it sounds wacky, but I'm excited about dying at some stage with a knowingness what I'm going to do. And that's where I would like to bring the planning phase in now. The planning phase in this pilgrimage, you know, but on that level, because of course we need to chunk it up. Otherwise, you know, I won't be happy. So the planning, let's see what they talk about. Planning here. Pilgrimage requires careful planning, including selection of a destination, determining the duration of the trip, and then making travel arrangements. So this is a very down-to-earth idea. Now, how can we plan for the celestial medium journey? How can we plan for our diamond bodies? How can we prepare for a death that is no longer going to be a death, because we're going to realize that we can use our bodies in a different, and some people talk about this is going to happen in 1,000 years. Now, fuck that. I don't think it's going to happen in 1,000 years. We're going to do this because we're choosing this now. So let's start planning with it, for it, right? So that's the planning phase. And even when I say planning, it's just intending it, bringing it into our, because there are so many people out there, I'm sure I'm not the only one, who's, as much as I appreciate the humanness, we've done human for a long time. Many lifetimes, right? We've been the pauper, we've been the poor, we've been the goddess, we've been the royals and all of that. We've done it all. And I appreciate every single lifetime that I've had on this lifetime, and everything that I've gained, the experiences and all that. But do you also find that there is this sense of what's on the other side of that rainbow bridge? How can we work with that? That gives us this utter freedom of choice to jump back in the body, to get out, to, you know, have this multiple simultaneous existence in total awareness.
And I think part of that is also just surrendering, right? So not trying to control it, right? And when we're coming from a perspective, which all of us do, but maybe not our own perspective, right? I mean, I just think about how many people are still stuck in the programming of their ancestral lineage or of the global narrative, right? That can only see from almost like a perspective with blinders on and running on that hamster wheel. I think there's a surrender that has to happen so you can transcend out of that sort of, well, trap. And even a deeper surrender that happens once you just let go of all that stuff.
And knowing that it's cyclic too, because as you're saying that, I can see where I've been running on the hamster wheel again here lately, and feeling just a little.
But that's part of the celestial, that's part of having the celestial body. That's just choosing it. You know, we can be ascended masters and you know, roam the astral world or go and become planets, this or that. And the next minute, okay, well, let's just pop in here quickly, grab a body and be here and enjoy exactly that. That's the choice of all of it. So all of it is perfectly okay the way it is.
Yes.
And you know, I think
This reminds me of something I picked up on the reading lately, but also which gave me a pullback on one of the other shows that we did, where we talked about what, you know, animals, and I was talking about the water buffalo. And it is actually the Zen, it's the 10 pictures of the ox herder, but the ox is actually a water buffalo. So it's, yeah. And it's about the fact that at first you don't see him. You have to go and find him. you hear him, but you don't see it. So first you don't see him, then you start hearing him, you start calling him, you start grabbing him, you start taming him, because the water buffalo is, you know, either it's your light body or it's, you know, the temptation of whatever you're seeking, the quest. And then when you have it and you have it tamed it, then you can relax. So what are you relaxing into? You are relaxing into the nothingness. So one of the images is actually white or dark, whatever you want to choose. And then suddenly the next image is nature, because when you have done that quest, you start looking at things differently. Maybe you see then again what is really in front of you without all the, you know, the drama around you. And then the last picture is the one where you engage with somebody on the road. In some pictures, you can see it's a Buddha-like person, or in others, it's just a pilgrim that you encounter on your road, because suddenly you become open up for nature again in the all this symbolic and metaphorical sense. But then you're able to engage again with the one that is in front of you, and the one that is in front of you is actually you, in a sense, because that's what, you know, it is. It is opening up again to this whole thing. And then when I saw the whole pictures in front of me, and like I said, I'm really missing my little puppet, my little water buffalo puppet, and it's like, okay, yes, that's exactly what I'm currently doing. You know, I'm chasing my water buffalo. So but I know that I will come to and maybe I have already reached it, where I'm, you know, opening, maybe I'm already at the next stage of the next stage of the next stage, because, you know, that can go on again, because then by encountering the last image or the Buddha or whoever or the pilgrim, you can find then maybe again another quest that you can engage onto, and then, you know, it goes around again and again and again and again in a spiral. So that is absolutely fascinating for me. So here was also another spiral loop, that because now I'm coming more and more, and also with Tanya, when you presented us to the galactic calendar and, you know, the spiral, it's like, why are we always talking about a circle? We cannot talk about a circle, you know, that's not what it is. It is a spiral. We always move on from it. It's not a circle. Nothing is a circle. It cannot be a circle.
Well, okay, so can it
Well,
be?
in a sense of, you know, when you go for something evolving, you know, a circle is just in a loop. It's like the hamster wheel, you know, it's not going anywhere. So you need to step out of it at one stage to maybe, you know,
So there's
move it along.
I'm just doing a spiral here, and it's many circles, right? A spiral is many circles. So is there like, I'm getting a sense of completion, complete the circle, but not necessarily in a linear fashion. And that's
It
what,
leaves room for expansion.
yeah,
It
just
have closure, it leaves room for expansion. Like an infinity loop is just a circle twisted, right? Like there's no getting out of that loop. So like it isn't that. It is open. It remains open.
the Ouroboros, isn't it? The like the snake eating its own tail. I was gonna say something while you were talking.
I
No.
just keep having the vision of the way that Van Gogh drew the stars, and that they were spirals, right? And there's this picture that just keeps coming to my mind of the way that our sun is in alignment with the sun, the sun in Pleiades, Alcyon, and that the way when our solar system is moving around the galaxy, the precession of the equinoxes, the way that our solar system moves around in this like spiraling sort of fashion. And in each, I don't know, era, I mean, it's almost like, how can I illustrate this? It's almost like if Alcyone is the star here, and then our sun is here, and there's 8 different stars, right? We're spiraling around like in this way, right? Where we're coming into alignment in some cases, and then we have a vertical line. But as we spin around, sometimes we're going way out of alignment with that, and sometimes we're coming right back into alignment with that.
Mhm.
I don't know why, but that was coming up.
One day I saw, and I think it was on Facebook, and I cannot find for the life of me find it back. There was an absolute wonderful 3D rendering of the galactic spiral, and it was laying sideways. You know, it was not like the one that you would think. No, it was laying sideways, and it was going like, you know, like the rocket. It's going, and it was like. Usually I would have saved it, but I cannot even find it anymore. Oh, it will come back.
Divine time. Divine.
Divine timing. When Tanya was telling her story about the waterfall behind her, I got brought back to when I was, I don't know, 19, 20 years old. Some friends of mine and I had driven up to Newfound Gap, which is like one of the highest places in the Smoky Mountains. And it's so high that sometimes you end up in a cloud. And so the day that we went up there, we ended up in a cloud, and it was so thick that like you couldn't see your hand in front of you. So like it was stressful, you know, as a teenager to be driving through that too. So we had pulled over to the top of the mountain. And they pulled over into like the bathrooms or the rest area to like just get a break from it for a minute. And as soon as I walked out of the car, like headed toward the building, couldn't really see, but I walked right into a Hare Krishna. And like it stunned me for a minute, but I just kind of like, you know, had a polite exchange and I walked away. Well, that person just like came back to me, like as we've been talking, and gave me a book. So like divine timing, somebody that I was supposed to have met, which I mean, I've gone through several awakenings in my life, and I was in the midst of one then, but I wasn't ready to receive that information. So it just came back to me now to like evaluate it. So when I get home, I'll have to try to pick apart and see what's in the book. But like such a random 2-minute memory 25 years ago that now comes back.
And this is so true, because you mentioned books. I've for some reason in the last couple of days, I've picked up books that I randomly remembered. And I thought, where's this book? I need to look at that, you know, and then maybe just read one page and lose interest again, you know, but all of a sudden they pop into my head for some reason. So yeah, it's that those circles that haven't completed, seeking completion, to really get into that spiral. And I think that's also when we look at the chakras as wheels, and some people now really coming out very strongly, there's never been a chakra, and that's all the limitation that we bought into, and be that as it may. But it's all that spiral, that we're going into that spiral, that tube of light, rather than, you know, the differentiation of all those centers. Now, let's get back to anything to that still, or let's get back to this pilgrimage, because we're talking
Well,
about.
I posted that picture in the chat, and I'll post it after we, you know, when you post
Posted
the Zoom link. But
yeah.
So getting back to pilgrimage for a second, I just was thinking about, as you posted that on Monday, the books and things that, you know, have had like a good pilgrimage story. And my client who came on, one of my clients who came on Monday, was reading the book by Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist. Right, and had that in her bag. I'm like, oh, okay, that's really fun. You know, of course, there's no coincidence, right? But that synchronicity, that was one of the first books that I read way back that sort of started triggering a greater awakening, right? Where the character is going on a journey and then of course meets all of these people who help him awaken more fully, right, to his power, to his purpose. And it's like it's almost like it's not the end destination that really matters. It's really the journey. Yeah. Think about that
This, yeah.
And
line
enjoy.
from the Muppet movie, that song from the Muppet movie, getting there is half the fun. Come share it with me, right?
So this is what I'll post the link in the chat. It's a German comedian. His name is Harper Kerkeling, and he did the Santiago Compostela trail as well. And it says well, in German it's "Ich bin dann mal weg," and in English it's like, yeah, I'm off then. And this was a revelation for him doing that, you know. And I mean, comedians are people that are like, you know, showing you how very keen observers of the human culture, right? Because that's how they make their money. And yeah, that it changed him a lot. He's still a comedian in a sense, but now he came also into his age and wise and wisdom in a sense. So yeah. But that was not the story that kicked me off on the pilgrimage. This was really one of my friends who did this 2 times 360 degrees change in her life. So it's really, really interesting to do that. And it can really engage you in something completely different. I mean, she started off training for being a lawyer. She had a lawyer. She was working as a lawyer. She got married, and she had a lot of travels and stuff like that. And then her husband died suddenly. And she was completely burnt out, not only because of the loss, but also because of being a lawyer. And she was like, I cannot do that anymore. I have to do something else. And so she stopped everything. And suddenly it was like, I have to go on the Camino. Like, okay. She's now in the German military. She's serving.
Yeah. That's what Tanya said. Open
It's
up.
like, you know, okay, there you go.
Open up. The journey itself is often considered an important part of the pilgrimage experience, as they talk here about travel. Pilgrims may travel to their destination by various means, such as walking, cycling, driving, taking public transportation. Yeah. The next one they mention here is mechanics of a pilgrimage, is accommodation. Now we talked a little bit about, you know, people, the community serving and being there to invite and offer food. Pilgrims need to arrange for accommodation during their journey, whether it be in hotels, hostels, or religious guest houses. Let's talk a little bit about accommodation in the pilgrimage of life. What comes up when we talk about accommodation? What is accommodation? The purpose of accommodation is obviously a safety perspective, right? Safety, self-preservation. So what's the pilgrim's journey when it comes to safety and self-preservation, security?
I think almost the opposite. It is allowing yourself to be in a vulnerable state to allow someone else to offer you safety and accommodation, which I would not be comfortable with. But looking for the shells on people's house, right? Like allowing yourself to be in a state of receiving and vulnerability and acceptance to allow somebody else to shelter you.
Well, and that, to me, that goes back to the concept of surrender, where you're not going to be able to control everything on your pilgrimage, but when you have a knowingness that it's all going to be in purpose, almost like for your greatest good, right? And maybe the greatest good for the people around you, but you know, it's like that energy of surrender and trust right? That you will be okay, right? That you're going to find what you're going to need, right? Whether it's a bed for the night or just a flat place to lay your bedroll and camp.
I think
Is
it's-
it
Go.
is it in Heinrich is it Heinrich Heine or Thomas Mann's book Siddhartha, where he says, I can do three things very well. I can fast, I don't care where I sleep and stuff like that. You know, it's like where you just need to let go of that. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's these very simple things that are quite difficult. I have slept in many places on this whole wild world, but I can tell you that I'm a little bit like Jen. I can do camping, yes, but I'm like Jen. I'm like, yeah, no, I need a bed. You know, it's like.
It was fun when I was 18, but like now that I'm 47, like I just want comfortable place to sleep and running water, you know?
Yeah, I get you.
That's the choice, and I'm with you girls. And
The running water, it's okay. I can do that a lot because I mean I've lived in Asia, but but it can be hard. That's not a problem.
no, but I think you mentioned something really important: the receiving, the surrendering, and the receiving, and also the trust. I think came up to trust that everything will be provided. And then, you know, in this movie, even, you know, remember who watched the movie when they came to this one door, and the guy was a bit crazy, you know, and they came in and he said he's going to make them some food, but he was upstairs in his room talking to himself, drinking, you know, that kind of thing. Because receiving isn't or trust is not blind faith. They came in, they even, I think they paid him or not, I can't remember that. But the main thing is they realized that, okay, that wasn't for me. That wasn't for them. He was a crazy man. They didn't want to spend the night with a crazy man. They rather chose to sleep outside and make a fire under the stars. So it's not like trusting is not blind faith.
Well, and that's also knowing, trusting your intuition, right? Knowing when to say, no, thanks. A tea out. Yeah.
Experiences from being a Girl Scout and also going on hikes, and suddenly you're in a group of 20 people and it's just pissing down with rain, and you have little ones with you as well, and you were supposed to be sleeping, you know, outside in the woods, and it's really not happening, and you have to do another 20 kilometers before you can go someplace. And I can tell you, we had that a few times, and at one time we came into a village and it was really like 3 houses, and we were just asking the farmers if we could sleep in, you know, if they could open up the barn, and we were just going to sleep in the barn, and the lady, she was like, "Oh, you cannot do that, we're 30 people, how are we going to do that?" And we were like, okay, but then it was raining and she looked at us and like, she's like, yeah, sure, no, I'm going to open up. It's fine, everything's going to be fine. And then she went into the kitchen, she started putting up all her spaghettis that she had, all tomato sauce. So she was even starting feeding us, and we were like, no, you don't have to do that. We have all, you know, we have everything with us, and it's okay, don't worry about that. But it was just like, how are we going to do that? You know, she was completely, you know, taken aback by the whole situation. But then she was like, no, I cannot let you, you know, 20 kids, I cannot let you in the rain, outside in the rain like that, you see. So yeah, so this is also where you have to just trust that it's going to be fine. And sometimes people are just overcoming their fear also of the strangers, and suddenly having 20 kids running around in their garden, you know, running wild in their garden. And then they were very, very happy about that. And the next morning, everyone, the 3 houses, that everyone was making coffee and bringing bread and jam and all that, you know. So it's, yeah. If we would have been 20 idiots, you know, teenage idiots, it would probably not have worked, but.
Yeah, I think too, you know, part of that, like trusting in your own knowingness is knowing when to zig when you thought you were zagging, right? I just listening to you, Sandrine, reminded me of a trip that I took to Hawaii. years and years ago when I was, my ex and I went together, and our plan was to backpack for like 4 days to these different camping sites and then stay in a condo for a week. And after the first day where we hiked to the first camping site near the airport, we had to like hike into town and get a permit and then hike to the camping site. And the next day, it was like it rained that night and it was so windy and we had blisters on our feet already just after that first day of walking. I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm walking back to the airport and renting a car. We'll drive and then we'll go to the different campsites and camp and do the hiking that we want to do. But forget this walking the whole way. Like, first of all, you look at Hawaii and you think, oh, that's a really small, manageable island. It was that Kauai. It was on Kauai. And it's not. It's huge, and even though we had done planning, it was, important to just, for me to know what was going to work and what wasn't going to work, right? To make a different plan. Like once you get into the situation, you're like, oh, heck no, I've got to zig. Yeah.
I think, surrendering is not suffering. It's a very big distinction here. Surrender is not suffer. And all of that is bringing us back to our ability to respond.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility. And that brings us back to accommodation. In a way, it's like we are in physical form. We have to accommodate our form. To not suffer. And that's just a choice. And I think lots of people, I think suffering is a big thing on this pilgrimages, they think they have to suffer in order to gain some sort of growth spurt or have an experience that catapults them forward. I think we've gone far beyond that hardship idea of, growth only happens through hardship and big suffering and self-flagellation and mutilation, all that sort of bullshit,
Well,
So
just listening to Sandrine talk about walking around Mount Kailash 7 times, right? The pilgrims who do that, they don't walk, they crawl, right? And they're prostrating themselves and saying prayers the whole way, right? 7 times around Mount Kailash. I don't know how long that would take. I appreciate, the prayers for humanity. Thank you. People who are crawling on your hands and knees and saying prayers for humanity, thank you for that. But is it something that I would do? No, probably not. Would I prostrate myself once I'm where I want to go, and say prayers? Sure. Saying prayers the whole time, or, prayers and intentions. And, I think that's part of the pilgrimage journey. But everyone has their limits, and everyone has, I think if we follow that need, right, when we go back to the intention, like, why am I doing this? Everybody has their own idea of what it's going to mean to them, of what they think they might get out of it. And I think you can say, oh, I'm going to get, this, that, and the other thing out of it. And all kinds of other things are going to come up, right? It's not going to be what you expect, but it will be what you need.
Yeah.
Have no attachment to the expectation.
This is actually number 4, religious rituals. Pilgrimage often involves specific religious rituals and practices at the destination, such as prayer, meditation, participation, religious ceremonies. So we've just covered that nicely as well. And again, it's just a choice, I just really think that old Malta, needs to be refined, as,
There is a
experimenter.
Yeah.
Get out if it doesn't work.
It's a very, very funny that you mentioned that right now, because there is an experience I had in my life. I was 9 years old, And I was supposed to go with the guides, with the scouts, to yearly procession, which is happening in Luxembourg. And it's called the spring, because you jump, the jumping procession. So you jump 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And we were supposed to participate in that one. It's always around, it's in May, it's now sometime now. And it's very big. We were supposed to participate in that. And my parents were also prepared to drive me there, because we were actually spending time not at home, so I couldn't drive with the group. But they said, okay, we will drive you there. We will participate in that. And on that morning of going there, I became seriously ill. And I had my dad thought I was faking because I didn't want to go and jump. My mom was on the verge of like, what's going on with you? You know, it's very strange. And I had a very bad how you call it, the yellow, the Gelbsucht, the jaundice. And I was one of the heaviest case. There was a virus, the jaundice virus, in that moment that was doing its thing amongst the population, but amongst the children, I was one of the worst cases that they had, because they drove me the next day to the 2 days later to the hospital, because I was not eating, I was not drinking, nothing. So in a sense, you could say that I wanted to engage, you know, in this. For me, it was not a spiritual thing. It was like, because the group was going there, so you're going there and we're doing that. And, you know, so, and as I participated in everything that the group was doing at that moment. But then something happened to me, and nobody knew why that happened to me. And nobody still knew how I picked up that virus, because I was not in contact with many people at that moment. I was just amongst my family. And so it's, you know, it's fascinating in the sense that as I was supposed to go on this sort of a pilgrimage or procession, you know, something actually awfully happened to me and prevented me from doing so. And I never engaged in it again. So now if you ask me if I want to go on the jumping procession, I'm like, you know, I had a bad jaundice already and I don't want to go through that again. But
well, would you like to, who wants to venture a suggestion to what happened to her?
My grandpa said that I was completely, he said, because in the past people thought that the jaundice comes when you are absolutely horrified by something and terrified. That's why you know, it's like, well, that you're completely terrified and horrified.
Well, your body was obviously warning you not to go there, and you know.
That's interesting. What I was getting as you were talking about that is you were picking up the collective energy of people who were getting it. Like maybe you saw it on the news or something, and your aura expanded out and said, what is this? What is this? Right? And then just drew it into you. And maybe it was because you were horrified about it, you know, that, or fearful of it, that it drew it.
I acknowledge that. It's just that I couldn't have picked it up from anywhere because nobody knew about that. It was just when we were at the hospital that they were, you know, telling us what was going on. And they were very, you know, it was nearly like they wanted to force fed me. And that is when I had my episode of eating, my episode with a sandwich, I'm calling it. It was a very profound episode and engagement with a sandwich that I wanted to eat. Yeah, no, it's, I can now look back at this and laugh at it because it's like, I learned a lot from that experience. But yes, which is probably also why I might not have had a calling of a pilgrimage in a sense, although I know that I absolutely know that I am on a pilgrimage.
Let's actually
of a more religious. I just wanted to finish on a more religious, with a more religious background, you know, because this is something that already happened to me in the sense that, you know, I was pulled back by it.
Let's actually make a point of this, you know, the acknowledgement of our body's technology, of our body's design, of our body's knowingness, because there is a lot, just like, you know, there's a lot of, when there's like a meditation, when people do meditations, global meditation, everyone is supposed to get on it, and we are, I don't know, meditating again for world hunger, releasing world hunger or something. This is usually the time I will never get onto this one, because this is how you collectively entangle with all the narrative. And our bodies, your body, has a capacity to know this already before it even happens. It could be kilometers away from you. And that's really something, you know, to acknowledge. Why not? Some people should not go onto these religious ceremonial pilgrimages because it's not what their bodies, you know, it's not what they require. Their soul doesn't require that. And actually, by doing that, they'll do themselves more harm. For whatever reason. And that's that knowingness that we need to acknowledge, that trusting, that surrendering, that receiving those universal guidance. It's not even universal, it's your own guidance from your body. And that's why you got it. It's totally irrelevant why you got it and all of this. You got it because your body said, you're not fucking going there, woman. That's it. You know, and that doesn't mean that you can never go, but next time you do, go with an awareness. But at the time you were 9 years old, you said, well, obviously your body said, no, you're not aware of what you're getting yourself into, because you have capacities that you haven't acknowledged yet. You are like a sponge absorbing everything. And that's what we need, because, and think about it, when you're walking these roads that thousands of people have walked before, everyone leaves their imprints. Everyone leaves their imprints. You have to be sacred neutral when you go on a pilgrimage like that. I mean, we've seen this in Turkey. When you go to these places, the millions of opinions people have about this. You can't get involved. I remember that one evening we had a share and tell, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think? And there were so many opinions, but when I said my one thing, I got shut down like this, and it almost made me physically sick. I had to go to my room and speak to Andrew. I phoned Andrew and said, am I a complete idiot? He said, no, you're right there. And I'm like, good. It opened it all up again. And it wasn't an ego thing. It was everything got so small by all this, and every single opinion there was right.
Yes,
it was right,
exactly.
But it wasn't the only one. And I got sidetracked because everyone was, I'm right. No, everyone was right. And I couldn't be the mediator that I usually am, because I got into the right and wrong, because my point of view was completely not valued. And it wasn't about recognition or anything, but my body just almost started to contract like that. So that's just one of those things. But think of those imprints. You know, it's like when you walk a road, there's literally, what do you call it, when there are ditches in there, when lots of people, or even
like cart roads.
Yeah, or when you go into a church and everyone touches the same thing. Think of all the imprints, or your body just picks it up. You're not aware of what kind of body you have.
Well, you know, the monastery where we went in, where we were both like, whoa, we've been here before.
Yeah.
And I was probably a sister that was, because she was slaying everybody.
There was this one place, that underground city, you know.
She couldn't go.
I just walked through the entrance and said, no, thank you, I'm not going. Yes. Could not go. And I don't know until now why. And there was definitely something that I couldn't do. And I totally trusted myself, and that was it. So yeah. So that's that. Yeah. Reflection and inner journey. And that's part of that reflection, that inner journey, you know, instead of making ourselves wrong for not going down there, or not wanting to walk there, or going, you know, a kilometer around. There is a reason for that. So pilgrimage is not just a physical journey, but also a spiritual and emotional one. Pilgrims often engage in reflection, introspection, as they travel to their destination and during their stay there. Then, of course, we got community and fellowship. We've already touched that. The travel.
And then probably the comeback, right?
What?
The coming back to, you know. the return of the journey in a sense.
Yes, the return. Yeah, it is return. After completing the pilgrimage, pilgrims return to their everyday lives, exactly, often with a renewed sense of faith, purpose, or personal growth. As you say, your friend totally changed her life after pilgrimage. Yeah. And then there's one more, it's documentation. Pilgrims may keep a journal, take photographs, or create other documentation of their pilgrimage experience to preserve memories and share their journey with others. Now that can be applied on our daily journey as well, right? Like you were saying, Sandrine, you started your dream journal. Lots of people do their calendar magic by writing things down, what sort of is significant dates or times in your life, or journals. Everyone knows the importance.
And some of the oldest, well, one of the oldest recounts of pilgrimage is the Canterbury Tales, right? From Chaucer. So that's like where everything is just, you know, it talks about everything, you know, from the beginning to the end.
And then inspiration is another thing. I mean, like in this movie, the guy had a writer's block, and by the time they finished, his book was finished because obviously he started writing about their journey. So there's a lot of inspiration on places like that, in places like that, and it doesn't, wherever you go. Yeah.
I think one thing that we haven't touched on, which is interesting, because when I drew a crystal card for our chat today, what came up was the card Bloodstone, which has to do with purification, right? So when you're setting the intention to go on a pilgrimage, right, maybe you do some fasting first, maybe you eat more cleanly, but also that purification happens on the journey itself, right? Where you're maybe clearing out, old concepts, old ideas, old programming, right? That it's almost like once you get to whatever sacred site you're going to, it's almost as if you can be stripped bare, right? To receive whatever you're meant to receive there.
This is where the movement comes in again, isn't it? Often, when you go for a walk or something, that all of a sudden thoughts come in or something gets released, right? Often, when I get stuck with anything, okay, let's go for a walk. It's a walking meditation where stuff just comes because it's that movement that is innately that rhythm within us.
And for me, I call that always in my language the digestive, process, because whatever happened to you, you need to have time later on to digest what happened. And I found out during my whole journey currently that this is really something, as soon as I notice that something, there is a change coming, I give myself time to digest it. If it is impactful, if it really brought me, and when I'm sensing that it's another step, or however you want to, you will feel it. I mean, when you connect it to that, you know when it's going to happen. And that is then the moment where I say, okay, now I need to digest this. And then usually I do things that are more mundane, without going on a big quest again. Just, like Jen said, maybe some gardening, or, watching some movie or whatever, just to let it all sink in and digest, and then, okay, move on.
It's the processing. And I think this is why, the intake of food is sort of connected to the intake of information, how we digest information, how we digest, because everything is light at the end of the day,
Yeah.
And I think having looked at the human design, the last couple of weeks, it's quite interesting how many different types of digestion there are. And we all get so hung up about the right kind of food, which at the end of the day is a huge, I think, part of that narrative that keeps us limited, and how we are actually self-sabotaging our entire, and through ignorance, but not in a bad way, but just lack of understanding. There's so many different ways of, if I look at my digestion, in one sign, when I do the human design, I'm supposed to be eating cold, just cold, colder than my body temperature, which makes a lot of sense, because when I compare that with information, I heat up. I heat up because I'm like, a compulsive information processing, analyzing. And that's probably how I digest food as well, the way I digest information. And this is why, for me, actually doing this on a weekly basis, that's part of my digestion process, because I take in so much information on a daily basis, and just being able to communicate it and share it is part of my digestive process, to release it. Otherwise, it gets stuck within me and I literally start gaining weight. It's very interesting. That, or the cold, so, and it makes a lot of sense when you start thinking back. I like eating cold stuff. I often eat things cold without even having acknowledged that I should be doing that.
I also would say that because I love eating meat. I love it. And I try to eat meat that is well fed from, that is coming from a good source, in a sense. But I just love it, and I love pork meat. So, and which is why I'm so happy in Asia, because a lot of little piggies running around there. So, and they're delicious. And why am I, but in the mainstream, and also of everything is like, and even the Buddhists now, they are all vegetarians, and it's like, but yeah, but my body does not tell me, because I can actually not. I tried it, and as soon as I start going into only eating vegetables, my body turns into this offensive, sugary, everything is going to taste sweet, and I don't like that. Sometimes I like when it tastes sweet, but as soon as I'm only on a plant-based diet, everything tastes sweet, and I'm like, this is horrible. I cannot, So it's my own body telling me, no, that's maybe not the right. And then probably people are going to tell me you have to do it longer time, blah, 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 blah. No.
No, you gotta look, we are testers, experimenters with life. So let's experiment. Yeah. I mean, look, I can't say it's just the cold thing that works for me, because I'm equally an alternating digestive person as well. I need different things, whenever I feel like it. On the other hand, I'm also one of those consecutive ones. I can just eat the potatoes, and then an hour later I eat the meat. And then, another hour later, I eat the broccoli, because, it's you just gotta be able to look. But the interesting thing is, sometimes, and this is why I love the mind to a certain extent, because you need to know what's out there, because I would have never thought of that in the first place, that's out there. But the more you can actually see all of these different things and compare with other people, not from a place of competition or, any of that, but from a place of, oh, I didn't know that was out there. Well, let me try that. Doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then you move on. That's the lovely thing about collecting and experimenting.
In Burma, I picked up, because I'm always running through markets, because I love markets. And there you can get classified posters of things that go together food-wise. And it's all based on the Ayurvedic as well, things that you can eat together and things that you should never eat together. And they're just hilarious. It's like pigeon eggs and papaya. You should never have those together. And you can read, and in a bad translation, it's either bad diarrhea or something very bad is happening to you. Instant death, for instance. There was one that always said instant death. Okay. So it's, and sometimes it's very funny when you pick up these things and you look at them, and then you're referring to your own, to your own sound, like, yeah, right. When I'm eating that and that, yeah, interesting. Let's try it in a different way, or, like. Yeah, so it's just fascinating what you can pick up from left and right, and then just try it out. It doesn't mean that because you just grown up in one culture and that's absolutely the one that you should continue eating for the rest of your life. Maybe there's something that is out there that you haven't tried, and that's absolutely it, for you.
And also, just because it worked when you were 16 doesn't mean it works when you're 26 or 36. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that bag of chips, that's not working anymore.
That pilgrimage of life is a never-ending story, right?
Mm.
And it's not a linear journey. It's not just one path. It's infinite paths. So, another, even the way I would do the Santiago one, I plan where I'm starting. And then plan nothing else. Just see how far I get. And if I'm halfway through and think, fuck it, I'll leave it. Or I'll make it to the end. And I would also have enough time. I wouldn't want to put myself a time limit either. So who wants to do it with me?
Maybe, but not 30 days.
Oh, no.
Maybe a week.
Different.
Okay, Jen and I, when you're in Santiago, we will come and greet you there, and we will have, pampering baskets for you guys, right? We do that.
Now piss off. You either come with us or you
No, but we're the welcoming party, we're going to
No.
take care of you guys. We're the caretakers, okay? Don't worry. We will also go to the cathedral, and we will light a candle and all that, okay? No problem.
If we can drive, can't we just get a camper van?
Sure.
There you go.
We can do everything.
Camper
Anything you like, go.
You gotta walk it, people.
Well, we said you walk, we will join you,
Did Marissa just say she's going to Peru? God. How many
Everyone is this year going to, you've been there. I'm going in June.
I'm going in August.
Peru is calling. Peru is calling. Amazing. We haven't had our Peruvian friend on for some time, Karen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh,
I miss her singing.
By the way, Shirley MacLaine. Going for a month of July. Well,
Shirley MacLaine. Okay.
Shirley
June,
MacLaine.
July, August.
Yeah, June,
Well,
July, and August. Okay.
But you all need to come back and obviously report what happened and, what the pilgrimage left you with or took away from you. And
you know who I'm going to meet there as well, right? Yes. Some of the back of the bus people from our Turkey tour. And we will actually do Easter Island as well. So we made the add-on of the add-on of the add-on. So yeah.
Fabulous. I think also, I said to Jane the other day, we do need to get together at some stage as us.
We do. We will meet in 2 weeks. So
yeah.
We're going to do all silly stuff with the lady there. And we're going to all the silly places in London. The tiniest building, and we also have to find the poshest or the most pink tea room that there is, right?
Oh, okay. I'll get Emma onto this one because I have no idea about London.
Well, probably the poshest place to go have high tea in London is the Savoy Hotel, right?
Yeah, but I have to tell you, I did 1 or 2 posh things and they always disappoint me. So I prefer maybe something more funny.
I was down to earth. Taking you to the park, to Richmond Park for a hike.
You're going to take me 5 days to the park?
Yeah. You know me, I eat ice cream for 2 months. I watch 40 now.
Time that I come and get you out of there.
Don't expect variety, woman. Oh God.
What?
I'm taking.
I want to go and see the Wimbledon lawn. I want to go and see the Wimbledon lawn. So you have to come with me.
Oh God, really? Okay, well,
You said you wanted to do funny things. Remember, you wanted to be ridiculous in old age. So start.
Well, I am ridiculous, but Wimbledon lawn is certainly not part of being ridiculous.
Well, I would suggest taking an old pub walk, right? Go down like to Blackfriars, one of the oldest pubs in London.
I'm sure we'll figure something out, because we actually when is it? It's Matthias De Stefano is coming over for a workshop. That's why
Yeah, the 9 dimensions of spirituality, actually, it's called, right?
Hmm.
and I'm gonna go to the workshop and see him there and see what new ways we can create to get to the top of the mountain.
I just want to know about his energy, that's all.
As I said, I've been to one of his talks in London. And I was surprised how what's the word? He was so nervous.
Yeah, he always is, apparently.
So nervous. But once he gets into it, it was very interesting to watch him, because it was very difficult to watch him, because you could literally not, because he's so undefined. I couldn't keep his image, because he kept fading out the whole time. It was very interesting to watch his not being defined, and presenting from a different place. It literally, almost for me, took him out of form. I've seen that before with another presenter, but I thought it was very interesting. Lots of space, when he starts presenting, he gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which is interesting. Yeah. So anyway, and then Jen is coming over as well. So I hope to see you then. I'll be back from Austria from another pilgrimage. I'm going to see my yeah. So from now on, everything's
Yeah.
Jen, when will you be over?
End of May, early June. Finishing out places in England and Scotland that I haven't seen. A couple places that I was going to try to get to in Ireland at the northern part. This trip, I'm not going to have time for, but we talked about doing a tour of Ireland to meet up with Mary and stuff like that too. So we'll just save that for that.
Yeah,
which means you get to walk Giant's Causeway with me, Martina. So
keep Ireland in mind. Oh,
yes,
look,
do
also
inform when you're doing Ireland. I have never been to Ireland. I think I need to go.
beautiful.
Yeah, and then we come over to the States.
Yeah, I think we need to do California, Arizona together for Earth New.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, where the majority of the peeps are, and then we all meet in the middle somewhere. And we obviously need to come over. Well, I need, and you too, Sandrine. But anyway, so that's a plan. So, pilgrimages. Planned, yeah. You see, there will be some planning, but at the moment, we're just putting out the intention. We're putting out the call, waiting for the call. Yeah, okay.
Waiting for the call.
Waiting for the call. Yeah, Manchester is cool. Yeah, there's lots of places, isn't it?
Yosemite, one of the most beautiful natural cathedrals.
Mm. Very good, ladies. I have to soon call it a day.
Yeah, well, let's all call it a day. It is 2 hours gone, ladies. Well done, my pilgrims. Thanks for coming on. And we haven't got a topic for next week yet, but we'll figure something out.
We're going to hear about your adventures together. Didn't you say?
No, it's on next. It's the week after. It's the week of 30, the week of 29.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah.
Big hugs.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.